We're factoring with greatest common factor today, but before you can do a GCF, you have to remember or learn how to divide. So we're just going to divide, and it looks like a fraction, but it's really division. So let's do this first one here, and I'm going to change my color so you can see something a little different. So on this first one, I start with the numbers. I've got a 6 on top and a 2 on bottom. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. And if I look at the x, there are no other x's in the problem, so I just bring that x to the final part of the solution. Now let's go to one that's a little more complicated. Now it's the middle problem. It's 6x cubed divided by x. So the first thing I notice is I go to do my numbers to divide my numbers out, and there's nothing on the bottom. Well, there's a coefficient of 1 right there. We just don't always write it. So if you don't see a coefficient in front of the x, it's a 1. So I do the same thing. Top number divided by bottom number. So 6 divided by 1 is 6. Now we're not doing the GCF here, we're just practicing division. And we'll get to a GCF here in a minute. Now I got to deal with these x's right here. So you might have learned it this way in a previous class where you draw it out, and I kind of call it kindergarten style, right? You draw out your x's, there's 3 of them on top, and there's 1 on bottom, and you cross off 1 on top, which crosses off 1 on bottom, and you're left with 2 on top, so you end up with an answer of x squared. But this is algebra 2, so we're going to do it a little bit different. So I'm going to erase this. We'll still end up with x squared, but we're going to get there a different way. We're going to subtract the top exponent on x by the bottom exponent on x. And you don't see a bottom exponent on x. If you don't see it, it's 1. So we don't always write it when it's a 1. We write it when it's a 2 or a 3 or a 4, but we usually don't write it when it's a 1. But you put it on there, and now we'll do this. Top exponent minus bottom exponent. So 3 minus 1 is 2, and that becomes my new exponent after I divide. You got the x squared again. Let's do one more before we set you loose to work on some on your own. So we're going to start with the numbers again. Remember, we're just doing division, but this is the first step into finding a GCF. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then if I look at my exponents right here on my x's, we're not going to draw them out. We're going to use the minus process. So top exponent minus bottom exponent gives me a 2. So my ending answer is x squared. So 4x squared. So if I divide those red fractions out, I get those answers. These aren't GCFs. We're getting to that point. We're just right now understanding how to divide.